Hey everybody, welcome to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast, dedicated to raising awareness, sharing IBD stories, and offering support for those with Crohn's and colitis. Together, we can share knowledge, experiences, and help show the world the many faces of IBD. Well, hi everyone. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Gish, Crohn's warrior since 2006 and lifelong fitness fanatic. So today I'm excited to bring you two guests, my first ever husband and wife interview. So talking with me today are Zach and Chelsie Leighter, who have a unique story and journey to share with us. Zach was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at the age of 12 and just underwent surgery in March to make his temporary ostomy permanent. His wife Chelsie is joining us today to also share her story as a newly diagnosed Crohn's patient just receiving her diagnosis this past September. So they're both here today to share their experiences and how they each manage their own diseases while supporting one another. So thank you so much for joining me today, Zach and Chelsie, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us. We're excited.
I'm excited to have you guys here. So you guys have been together for quite a long time, and Zach, you've been battling Crohn's since the age of 12. So Why don't you start, Zach, by sharing your Crohn's story, and then also tell me a little bit about how you and Chelsie met.
Sure, absolutely. So I was in sixth grade and started, just kind of like everybody else. You had the loose stools, never feeling good, stomach pain, all that good stuff that comes with Crohn's. And my parents, were kind of really worried at the time. So we live in Des Moines, and in the early 2000s, that we actually didn't have a pediatrics GI in Des Moines. So we had to go about 2 hours away to one of the universities to actually figure out what was going on with me. So we did all the tests. We finally figured out that I had Crohn's disease.
What was that like being so young at the age of 12? I mean, you're just barely learning about life at that age. So what was it like to hear that news?
It was, I think looking back at it, it was pretty scary. When you're so young, you hear that. I never heard of Crohn's disease before. I don't even think anybody in my family really had heard of it. So it was really scary at the time, especially having to take, I think I was taking like 15 pills a day. I'd never really taken a pill before. So just having to start off doing something like that, it was a tough time for our family. But you know what? It ended up being, it brought our family really close, as crazy as it sounds, with such a bad deal. But it was tough at the beginning.
And did they try starting you on a lot of different medications, or which ones did you end up going through?
I was on a ton of prednisone. I remember that at the beginning. And you know what? It's so long ago and there's so many different drugs that I've tried over the years that I tend to forget the names.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember what it was exactly at the beginning. I just know it was a lot of oral medications just to try to get it under control. At the beginning, I remember going from sixth grade to seventh grade and, weighing like 60, 70 pounds. And, all my other friends were playing football, playing sports. And I just, I couldn't do it because I was so sick and so tiny. So it was a tough age to really get diagnosed with that.
Did you end up having some relief eventually as you kind of got older?
Absolutely. So as, junior high was the big kind of trial that after a year of having to drive to the neighboring college, they finally end up getting a pediatrics gastro doctor in Des Moines, and they were able to actually get me on some new medication. I would think it was either 8th grade or 9th grade, I was able to get on Remicade, and that's kind of really when I went into remission. I was on Remicade for about 6-7 years. Mm-hmm. So mostly through high school and the beginning of college, I was luckily being able to be in remission for most of that. So that was, it's kind of a blessing to be able to have my teen years to be actually pretty healthy.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So, and then during this time, probably about, let's say end of junior high, early high school is when Chelsie and I started dating. So it
Mm-hmm.
was my eighth grade year and her freshman year. We started dating. So Chelsea kind of got a good glimpse of what Crohn's was at a young age as well. I remember us going to some dances, and I ended up just in the bathroom the whole time because my Crohn's was acting up so bad. And she, stuck with me, sat outside, kept coming in, having someone coming in and check on me. And it was a tough time, especially for, most people didn't really understand what the disease was in high school. So I was pretty lucky to find someone that, really cared and to figure out what it was.
That's awesome. I mean, that you guys were just kind of high school sweethearts who have just been together all this time and have been through so many challenges and struggles and still together. I think it's just wonderful. A little love story in the mix here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're pretty lucky. It's not always easy as you know with Crohn's, and we all have our ups and downs with it. But she's been a trooper and dealt with it as the years have gone on. So I've been pretty lucky with that.
That's awesome. So, Chelsie, I want to hear a little bit from you. Why don't you share your story because you're a brand new diagnosis, and I'm curious, did all the years that you've been with Zach and watching him go through the disease, did any of that prepare you for a diagnosis? And what was it like having been so familiar with the disease and then discovering that here you were facing it yourself?
Yeah, and it's crazy because I remember the day that I was diagnosed. We were on the way there, and I'm like, Zach, there's no way that I have Crohn's because they still weren't 100% sure. I remember driving there. We pull up. I'm like, Zach, there's just no way. There's no way. And we're sitting there, and he tells me I have Crohn's, and I about fell off the table. But thinking back at that time, I when he had told me that, I knew kind of what was going to happen, which was nice. It was a blessing in disguise, I guess. And even the doctor couldn't believe that Zach was sitting next to me and had Crohn's for as long as he has, and now I have it. He's like, hey, it's you guys, this is like winning the lottery, but not in a good way.
Yeah, it's like, well,
So
give me the lottery ticket.
yeah, I'd rather
Exactly.
much rather win the lottery than this. So but yeah, it did prepare me, mentally and I guess physically as well. I knew what was going to happen. Right away they started me. They said, because in our future, we wanted to have another child. So I had made that apparent. They said, well, Remicade is going to be the safest for you, so let's get you started on that and keep your Crohn's under control. So I knew going into starting Remicade the process was. I used to sit and talk to Zach for 3 hours every time he had his Remicade, and what the process was on that, how often I was going to have to do it. So you know, like I said, it was a blessing in disguise for me because having to see my husband go through something so horrible and now knowing I'm going to have to do it, it prepared me mentally.
Hmm.
So I guess that's, yeah.
And how long had you been dealing with symptoms? Did it come on gradually for you, or was your Crohn's a pretty sudden onslaught of symptoms?
It was actually after we had our son Cash. We had him in June. And so I actually had him 6 weeks early. And they could not figure out why. They did every testing, looked at everything, and they were like, I just don't know why. Well, September rolls around, or I guess it was probably August rolled around. And I ended up having terrible stomach pain. And I ended up actually going to the ER. And, they ran a bunch of tests, and this doctor was like, yeah, I don't know, let's check. It may be your appendix. So they sent me to the ER, did all that testing, and kept me overnight. Well, that's kind of when the Crohn's diagnosis came about. So it's just crazy how it all happened.
Hmm.
But it kind of all started with I guess having our child. So, which is nuts, I guess. So,
Yeah, there's some theory or discussion that there's kind of a trigger for, some of these autoimmune things where there's environmental factors and lifestyle factors, and usually there's a trigger. So who knows? Maybe it's, just we never know what's going to trigger something in our body when it comes to autoimmune. But a big event like that could certainly, maybe it was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yep, exactly.
I like to blame my trigger on the anthrax vaccine. that's, that's what I'm blaming my Crohn's trigger on. So Zach, why don't you tell me a little bit more about your story kind of after high school, because you just recently had, about 2 years ago, you had a temporary ostomy, and then sounds like in March you made the decision to have that permanent. So tell me a little bit from, pick up where Remicade, you're doing well, and then how does kind of life get you to where you're doing the temporary ostomy, and tell me a little bit about that decision and then making it permanent.
Absolutely. So, obviously I went to college just like your typical college kid, doing great. My first couple years of college, I was doing well. Health wasn't doing well, and then you start doing the college things. You drink, you stay up late, you study a lot. You're stressed with school, and towards the end of the last probably few years of college, things kind of started getting worse. I started going to the restroom more. My stomach pain started kind of coming back. Didn't have the energy like I did. Come to find out that I was starting to build up antibodies to the Remicade. It's kind of stopped working. So I went to the next biologic, which was Humira. That kind of stopped working. We tried this drug Lialda, which was a pill form. And I remember it was right around finals time. I had to drive to class, and I'd been really sick for about a week, and I had no control over my bowels at all. I get to pull into class or to take into my final, and I literally pooped my pants because I couldn't control it. I went up there and had to tell the professor that I'm sorry, I can't take this final because I literally pooped my pants. Come to find out, I had a reaction to the medicine. I had pancreatitis that I was living with for a week, and just toughed it out, thinking it was Crohn's acting up. That was a long week. My mother-in-law, we're really close, called me and said, "You need to get to the ER right now. You got something going on." And so that spent about a week and a half in the hospital recovering from that.
Now, did the pancreatitis form from as a side effect of medications, or did?
Yep.
Okay.
So now that's something that I have to put down every time that I'm allergic to Lialda, because it was a side effect to the medication. So that was something else. That was an experience. A lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. We deal with a lot of pain with Crohn's, but that was something way different. But after that, I get to my senior year of college. We went to Humira after that. Didn't work. Went to Entyvio. Didn't work. And then towards my last finals of school, I started getting really bad. That kind of the same deal. I was losing my weight again, going to the bathroom more, had no control. I graduate. Chelsie and I got engaged. We bought a new house. I started a new job. So you have all your triggers of stress right there, just kind of piling up with you.
No small amount of stress there.
Exactly. And that I've noticed for me with over the years that one of my biggest triggers of stress, the more stress I have in my life, it just really amps up my Crohn's. So during that time period, it got pretty bad. We ended up getting married in September of that, right after school. I just remember being on our wedding day and our honeymoon, and I just was not doing well. I wasn't myself. We got out as much as we could, but I had my dark circles under my eyes. With my Crohn's, I get really bad body aches, and my body aches were there on top of the stomach pains. So fast forward about a year, we found that I was in my job. It was a really demanding job that I had to manage, multiple guys and multiple construction projects, night jobs, things like that. I would literally go to work, come home, sleep the rest of the night, do it again, and that was kind of my life for a while. I literally got so sick that I'd be throwing up in the bathroom at work. My stomach pain hurt so bad that it was like a constipated pain. But come to find out, it was just my intestines were so swollen that no poop could get through. So Chelsea and I actually found out that we were pregnant, and that's kind of led for me to get the temporary colostomy bag to give my lower colon and rectum a break to hopefully, let it heal. And I wanted to, get my life back to be able to be a dad and a good husband again. So that was the main reason to lean to the temporary.
And so you had the temporary for 2 years. Was there anything that kind of served as a catalyst for saying, all right, this is going to go ahead and be permanent. Let's do this? Or take me through that kind of mental process and decision.
No, absolutely. So yeah, when we went with the temporary, I was absolutely terrified. It was, being 25 and hearing you're going to have a colostomy bag. I was like, this is not something I want to do. But hearing the news that I was going to be a dad, it was definitely the right move. Those 2 years, it honestly gave me my life back. I became myself again. I go out and do stuff with friends. I could do my job. It was a blessing in disguise. So we fast forward the 2 years, like you're saying. I had all my, we tried to do a colonoscopy, and he couldn't get up there with the camera because it was so swollen. So they did a MRI enterography deal, and the inflammation was still just as bad as it was when I first had it. So
wow, this is even after 2 years?
yep, 2 years, and I was on Stelara, and I'm still on Stelara over those 2 years, to try to help with that inflammation down there. And so it was still that bad after 2 years of giving it a break down there. So basically, what doctors had told me, he said you got a couple options. Either your colon's going to burst, you're going to get colon cancer, or we take it all out down there, and you have a permanent colostomy. So I said, well, I definitely don't want it to burst, and I don't want colon cancer. So I guess that's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me a couple months to kind of really decide in my head. My surgeon that I had for my first one always told me that you have to be mentally prepared to that you're going to have this forever before you do it. So after kind of hearing that, I really had to prepare myself that, okay, I am going to have this forever, because a colostomy bag is scary to think about, but it's not the end of the world. You can deal with it. You can live your life, but once we finally made that decision, it was for the best. I'm glad now that it's done and over with, and I'm ready to move on with life and hopefully kind of get back to myself again.
Mm-hmm. How's the recovery going? Because I assume you're still in recovery mode because it's only been
Yep.
about a month now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked to my surgeon after my surgery, and he had told me that my colon and rectum area was so bad that usually when they take it out down there, it's kind of rubbery, but he said it was like a steel pipe is how bad my intestines had got down there.
Wow.
So after hearing that, it was kind of like, there was a sigh of relief that there was really no way that it was going to kind of come back to be a normal colon. So, I ended up being in the hospital for about 5 days, and recovery now. The biggest things for me is they did everything robotically, so I don't have these huge incisions or anything like that, which was great. But right now it's just getting my bottom to really heal up and be able to sit for a long period of time, and then just get my energy level back. Other than that, it honestly has been going really great, to be honest with you.
That's good to hear. So tell me a little bit, both of you can kind of jump in and answer this, but how does Crohn's affect your day-to-day life with both of you having the disease? How do you juggle that, and how does it, you've both got Crohn's, you've got a little boy a toddler still. So how does that affect your day-to-day life?
You know, right now it's really tough because I'm on a weight limit deal, so I can't pick up our son, which has been really tough on Chelsea. And you know how it goes. We with Crohn's, you have your highs and your lows, and you have your moodiness, and you have it all. So we kind of both, we say it's our Crohn's period at a times where they tend to link up at times.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we just both just try to, take a deep breath, and we both realize what we're going through. And there's different, like for us, it's there's different types of the way it affects our day because, with mine being as severe it is and hers kind of more a moderate case, it's just kind of different to look at each other and kind of see what we go through on a daily basis. Yep. Anything you want to add?
No, yeah, spot on. Zach's, and I always say this when, we're describing it to people, is I always put it as a scale. So I'm like, Zach's is a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, and mine's about a 3 out of 10. And so luckily one of us can function mostly on a daily basis and can take care of, our son and stuff around the house and our dogs and, everything. So at least we have one of us knows if one's struggling and, having a bad day, the other one steps up and does whatever we can to help each other. So it's kind of nice knowing that we're both struggling at the same time with the same type of things, but
Mm-hmm.
one of us will, step up and take charge if need be. So
I imagine that having that understanding of truly knowing what each other is going through can really make such a big difference, because it's one thing when, your spouse maybe does not have Crohn's disease and they're sympathetic to it, but it's another thing to truly be going through it yourself and truly understand. So I imagine that definitely makes it nice to know that you can just understand each other better that way.
yeah, yep, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about flares, and just like Chelsie, you've been dealing with this for almost a year now, and Zach, you've been dealing with it for many years. Are there certain things that you guys have learned over the years and just with your experiences on when you do feel symptoms starting to ramp up? Are there certain things that you found beneficial that do help you, or things not to do even?
With mine, the 2 flare-ups that I had, I guess I don't know necessarily what had caused it. But since I've been on Remicade, I have not had any flare-ups, so I've been fortunate on that aspect of it.
Yeah, for me, it's a good question because sometimes these flare-ups can last a long time and sometimes they're, just short and brief. For me, like I was kind of saying, I didn't deal with a ton of stomach aches. It was just more like when my severe right before my surgery, but I get really bad body aches and I get really fatigued. That's a really bad part of mine. And so for me, I always just I rest. I get as much rest as I can, but I make sure to get up and walk as well and be around people. This disease can really get you so isolated, and I feel like that at times can make it so much worse. So that's the big thing for me is that I make sure to get my rest, but I also try to be around people to give you that normality with life and not to, be in bed as much as possible. But easier said than done.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip though. It's a great thing to point out, because I know, just even my own experience of how quickly I can be doing great for so long and there's just one bad day and all of the sudden, like for me, I'll just spiral downward because it's all the years that I felt bad and felt horrible, and it's like this fear comes back. And so
Yep,
I think it's important to remind yourself that no, get out, see people, laugh, enjoy company of other
exactly.
people, and that's a great tip.
Well, and like this disease, it's so hard to in a sense to talk to people about it because one, it's an invisible disease. Like it's not like if someone sees someone's leg broke, they're like, oh yeah, I get it. But with this, now that I guess I have a colostomy bag, people can see it. But for so long, and especially being in the younger age, people just didn't understand. They don't understand that you're hungry, but nothing sounds good to eat, or you're you just woke up, but you're extremely tired still. It's a tough disease, and so being not afraid to talk with it about people, that's what truly helped me. Is just making sure that I didn't isolate myself and talk through it with people. That's one big advice I can give to people.
It's a good tip. So tell me a little bit about food, how is it in your household with two of you having Crohn's? But it sounds like, Chelsie, it sounds like you're in remission and doing really well, and Zach, hopefully the surgery is giving you a wider diet. But tell me
Yep.
about food, how that's affected things over the years and a little bit now.
Yeah, for sure. So my biggest things is I've been pretty lucky that I've been able to eat mostly everything over the years. The biggest things for me is, popcorn, corn on the cobs, seeds, nuts, and unfortunately, I absolutely love popcorn and corn on the cob. I mean, we live in Iowa, so you get some of the best corn on the cob. But with this over this last 2 years of having a colostomy bag, I've been able to bring those foods kind of back into my diet, which has been a nice thing. But I've been pretty blessed over, growing up that I didn't really have too many foods that I couldn't eat. And I mean, I need to do a better job of eating better, and that's the one thing with my having this permanent colostomy. Me and Chelsea kind of our goal is for me to, really be able to put back on healthy weight and do it the right way. I
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, and I don't know if it's just because it's down there in that gastro area. I have a really bad craving for sugars all the time. I have a very bad sweet tooth, and that I does not help my Crohn's at all. Those sugars and pops really, I can tell, cause my flare-ups at times, but I eat it, and I don't know why I do. It's just a bad habit of mine.
I understand. I have a terrible sweet tooth, and I think I say it's because when my mom was pregnant with me, she pretty much survived on peanut M&Ms and Diet Coke. So I think that's where my sweet tooth came from. But
No,
I completely understand what you're going through.
no, it's so I that's my habit. My goal to break is to get away from those sweets now that my surgery's over. But Chelsea, how about you? Do you have any?
No, like Zach said, I mean, we were joking about it today. His eating style is pretty unique. Like today, he had 4 Star Crunches and I think 2 ice cream sandwiches already. So it's like, all right, Z, come on, man. But and I'm more of the other side of it. I'm active. I work out. I'm pretty healthy when it comes to eating, So I'm trying to persuade that into Zach's lifestyle. So it's definitely a mountain to climb because it takes a little bit of time and he is a super picky eater. So that's my hurdle, but we're working on it. I'm trying to get him on track and I think that definitely will help him to feel better. When you cut out pops and sweets and things like that out of your diet, you really do feel like a whole new person and it will give him a little bit of spark, I think. So that's our goal right now.
That's an awesome goal. I totally support that. So how do you balance, what have you found that works to balance stress? Because Zach, you mentioned stress is a huge trigger. I imagine, Chelsie, I'm sure life is stressful with a toddler as well. And I know for me, stress is a huge trigger. So what have you guys found to really be able to manage the stress and just balance life, work, and kids and Crohn's?
That's a great question because it's not easy. Um, that first job that I was talking about earlier, I actually had to quit that job because I was so stressed out with it, and that's kind of where my downfall, being sick and everything, was. Um, so I actually ended up finding a job that was kind of out of my field of what I went to school for, in a sense, and it actually worked out to be a blessing in disguise. It was a lot less stressful and it had better health benefits, which was a plus. So for us, I think what we both try to do is, we keep work at work, and then when we're at home, we try to just be as stress free as possible. We make sure to hang out with our son and try not to be on our phones that we tend to be on at times, and that we see and can stress us out with whatever. So that's the biggest thing, is just making sure we're staying together and taking our deep breaths when we need be. How about you with you and your work?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, we do a really good job of keeping, like Zach said, keeping work at work, because that's just one stressor that you bring home and it doesn't need to be. So with wild. Everyone knows they can be super stressful at times, but like I said earlier, we're a team, and when we need to tag the other one in, we do it. So we definitely try to help each other out as much as possible, because we know what happens with stress for both of us is it's not a good cause for us. So we definitely try to help each other out on that side of it as well. So
I think that's a great tip of being able to leave work at work. And I want to dig in a little bit more on that. Do you have any tips on how you've been able to do that? Zach, it sounds like you just found a new job entirely, which I think is an important thing to point out, because sometimes that is what it takes, is to actually remove yourself from a stressful situation and find something better. So, Chelsie, do you have any tips on how you're able to completely leave work at work and then be able to come home fresh and kind of relieved of that?
I guess during the day, if, there's some things that are, stressing me with work, I'll talk to Zach, because he'll usually talk me off the ledge and help me through it. But I mean, once, the end of the day hits, we just really try not to talk about it or bring it up. And, if something is bothering us, we will. But other than that, I mean, we try to keep it within the work hours. If something, at work is bothering him, we'll talk about it during the work hours. But I mean, once we're home, we try to have a home life. We try to keep everything out and just try to be normal. So honestly, we just block it out from, 8 to 5, which, I'm in sales, so it's not necessarily an 8 to 5 job, but, I try my hardest to, block my time out for my family. So that's my biggest thing.
I think that's a great tip for people who don't have Crohn's even. I think a lot of people could benefit from doing that, from leaving work at work and setting those boundaries and coming home and having that family time and time together.
A lot easier said than done, but we try to make it a priority as much as we can.
And I imagine practice makes perfect. You keep practicing it, and
exactly,
it gets easier.
Exactly right. Yeah, it sucks when you have your work email on your phone and you see it pop up, but you know what, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Exactly. So tell me a little bit. I want to talk about advocacy, because you've just recently started, it looks like you recently started your Instagram account to really start spreading awareness for IBD. So tell me a little bit about what compelled, I think, both of you to start being advocates for Crohn's and colitis and start sharing your own stories.
I think it was something that Chelsie and I we were talking about one day, that, we're like, we have a unique kind of deal that we've both thought that it could really benefit, other Crohn's patients out there. And I honestly, I went to a support group one time here in Des Moines, and I got a lot out of it, just kind of hearing other people's stories. And, you see these people that are newly diagnosed with Crohn's, and, they looked absolutely terrifying hearing some of the stories of what these people go through. So we just kind of thought that, maybe we could bring a different aspect of a couple that both has Crohn's, and shed some light on what it's like to live with it, and kind of a different way, and kind of how we deal with it. That was kind of what we were thought about, and it took us some time to really kind of get started with it, with my surgeries and everything that we had planned going on, and having a 2-year-old running around. But we're glad we finally did get to it, and we're glad we'll be able to share our story, and hopefully it helps other people. We've had quite a bit of people reaching out to us, just thanking us for sharing it. We're blessed to answer anybody's questions that reach out to us, so we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, we have a pretty amazing IBD community, I think. It's really incredible, just the amount of people that are so ready to support one another and answer questions and help each other. It's pretty incredible once you start reaching out and talking with people and really seeing this community. It's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. It's such a tough disease to talk about. Some people just don't like talking about poop and things like that. So it's good to let people know that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to share your story, and not feel so isolated. And that's the biggest thing for me. That reason I wanted to start it is let people know that you don't have to be isolated and not talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's great because, like you're saying, it's so easy to not talk about it because
Yep.
you don't want to go to work and tell your boss about I'm late because I had multiple bowel movements this morning, or
Exactly.
so it's
Exactly right.
can be tough to navigate. So
For sure.
tell me a little bit, because you've just recently gotten involved with the Gut It Out Foundation. So tell me a little bit about what that is, how you got involved, and what you're doing as part of that.
For sure. So Jake Diekman's a professional baseball player for the Royals, and a friend actually sent me a picture a few years ago of him, and he had a colostomy bag, and I had just got my colostomy bag, and I'm like, wow, this is a professional baseball player. He has UC, and he was just going through his 3 surgeries for his J pouch, and so Chelsea and I kind of started following his journey over the last couple of years. And so we saw that he was doing a fundraiser, his goal to raise some money for Crohn's and colitis research, and he was looking for some ambassadors. So I decided to sign up and start my fundraiser to see what we can do. And we just actually reached our $1,000 goal, and we raised it up to 2,000. So if anybody's looking to donate to a good cause, check out our Instagram link. But no, it's going great. We're right now we're still game. We've been reaching out to community members, family, friends that have helped donate. We're actually gonna be working on some hopefully fundraisers here in our hometown to help raise some more money. So it's been really fun for us right now.
That's awesome. What kind of fundraisers do you think you guys are going to try to work on and maybe develop?
So there's a couple restaurants in town that we were trying to talk to that maybe to hold a Crohn's and colitis fundraiser there, where we kind of work it and then get people there, do some games and stuff like that. And we've also we have a local baseball team here that we're trying to talk with too, to hopefully maybe collab with them on a project as well.
So do you think, one of the things I like to ask people that have been advocating about Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, do you think that being an advocate has shaped your view of the disease, and has it changed as you've evolved?
That's a good question. I guess I've really haven't thought about it too much. I think with this disease, you kind of have a mindset for so long about it that it's tough to kind of change the way you see it. But I had never known what a colostomy bag was. I never, had seen another person with a picture of it. And being on, like, since we've started this, seeing how many other people have it, seeing how many other people are going through Crohn's and UC, it's amazing to know that you're not alone and that there's a great community of people around there.
I think too, the biggest thing being an advocate for Crohn's and colitis is, educating people who have no idea on the disease. So, there's so many people in the community who, they know Zach and I, but they don't know what either one of us goes through on a daily basis. So, hosting fundraisers and doing things like that in the community and educating people and letting them know about the disease, I think is huge. And just for people to have a better understanding of, what people with Crohn's colitis go through on a daily basis too.
Yeah, I think that's really important. There's just so many people out there that really have no idea what it is, and without people like you guys, being out there and sharing the stories and bringing it to the community, there's few opportunities for people to learn about it. What's been one of the most, is there anything that you've found, what's been one of the most surprising things that you've maybe discovered as you've been teaching people and educating people about the disease? Have you had any surprising reactions or anything that's been interesting as you've gone through this advocacy process?
I guess nothing really sticks out to be super surprising. And again, I've known what Crohn's is since, I was 13 years old because of Zach. But it's crazy, like, how Zach said at the beginning of, our conversation was no one really knew about Crohn's when he was diagnosed, but there's so many people who still don't know about Crohn's. And I think that's the most surprising is what is, you get people to say, what is Crohn's? Well, what is that? And, being in this, having this disease for as long as we have, it's just funny to hear that because it's like, oh man, here we go, starting at square one. So I would say that's the most surprising thing that I've ran into. But, and a big thing too is a lot of people I feel like popping up here and there, we keep hearing is getting diagnosed with Crohn's. So that's something else that's been surprising too, that we've tried to understand as well. It's interesting to see, oh, I have Crohn's now and I have Crohn's. I just got diagnosed. It seems like people are just getting diagnosed left and right now. So
yeah, I definitely agree. It does seem that it is becoming a lot more prevalent. And so that is kind of an interesting phenomenon that's happening, I guess. So if people want to keep up with you guys, tell me where they can find you online, where the best places to go is, and then if they want to make donations for the Gut It Out Foundation or contribute to your fundraiser, what's the best way that people can follow you, keep up with you, and learn more about your journeys?
The best way to follow us is through Instagram at our page, which is The Unspoken Journey. And on that page in our bio, there's a link to the Gut It Out Foundation, and you can donate through the website there.
Fantastic. I'll put both those links in the show notes so that people will be able to just easily click on them and find them if they're looking for them.
Well, I actually have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how much you're involved in, with the Crohn's, food fitness as your podcast is. What is some advice you can give to me or to help me put on that healthy weight that I'm looking to get?
Definitely.
Is there any go ahead, sorry, didn't mean to
That's
interrupt.
okay. I was gonna say definitely not the ice cream sandwiches.
Yes.
Honestly, I think finding the right food, so foods you can tolerate, which hopefully is a wider variety, but I'm a big proponent of protein. I think our bodies definitely need protein. It's in, it's the makeup of our muscles and our bones, and so our bodies need the building blocks that, the amino acids that protein can give us. So I'm a big believer in eating proteins and lots of healthy fats, animal fats, things like avocados, and getting enough calories in. Because if you're going to grow, you need the energy surplus. So I would definitely say eat good calories, lots of protein, get some healthy fats in there. And
would you suggest doing, because I've heard a lot of people say with Crohn's that they don't do 3 big meals, they do like 6 smaller meals. Like, is that something you look into, or is it more you just kind of do the normal?
I've actually, many years ago, so probably 18, almost 20 years ago, I used to do fitness competitions. And so I used to do the typical bodybuilding, eat 6 meals and eat your breakfast, eat your snack, eat your protein shake, eat another meal, eat another snack. And I used to do that, and it works. A lot of bodybuilders will do that. But one of the things I've learned over the years is just the way that our hormones work. And so every time we're eating, we're spiking that insulin, which is good for growth, which is probably why a lot of bodybuilders do that. But it's also doesn't give our bodies time to rest. And so lately I've been playing a lot with fasting just to help my digestive system get that time to rest and repair and eat. And so I've seen a lot of people be successful doing that, 6 meals a day style, but I've also seen a lot of people be really successful doing the OMAD, the 1 meal a day, or just twice a day. Kind of just listening to your body, eating when you're hungry, making sure you get enough calories, and filling in whatever, once you get your proteins and fats, fill in with whatever vegetables, corn, corn is always a good grower. If you go to the corn-fed football players are always the big ones. So,
Absolutely.
So that's it's kind of what I would recommend. Lifting weights as you can, as you get stronger, and just working up and helping your body to grow that way. It's not it's definitely not easy to put on muscle. If it was, all the bodybuilders would have the secrets figured
Exactly.
out. So it's definitely a long journey,
No,
but
that's the biggest thing for me is I just need to get, like she said, get down and do it because I know now that I've got that bad part of me out that I think I really could be able to put on, that healthy weight and that's one thing I'm really looking forward to.
And I will say the sugar cravings, they do go away. They're hard. Like for me, I'm a huge chocoholic
Yep.
and chocolate chip cookies are my probably the most favorite
Oh
food on
yeah.
earth, but I have not had any chocolate or cookies or anything for at least 2 years now, and
Oh wow.
and I still love sugar, and but I can watch my husband eat a piece of cake, or I can watch him eat food, and I look at it, and yes, I want it because I still remember how delicious it is. but I don't crave it. I don't have to have it, if that makes sense. And because
For sure.
I've been off sugar long enough that the cravings they've dissipated. And yes, I still want it more. It's more of a mental thing. I love sugar. And
I'm right there with you. And like, do you take, because one thing like we've researched is like that candida that's like down in there. Do you take like probiotics or anything like that to kind of help fight off
I
those bad?
I do, and I haven't really found anything to actually work. Like I've heard people say the branched chain amino acids can help when you're take those if you're having sugar cravings, or take XYZ, and I've tried pretty much all those things, but I still just want the real thing. And I think
Yeah.
it's just because like I said, my mom, when she was pregnant, it was M&Ms and Diet Coke. And then I grew up, in the 80s and 90s, and I lived on Pop-Tarts and ramen noodles
Yep.
and Lipton iced tea, full sugar. And everything
Absolutely.
was just, we'd come home after school, we'd have cookies, we'd have dessert pretty much most nights of the week. And I think it's just in me. So even though I've been avoiding it, because I've been keto for a long time, I've been low carb for a long time, and then really I'm now more of a carnivore approach. And so the cravings are gone. I don't walk around, throwing pillows around looking for chocolate, but but
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
there's light at the end of the tunnel. It gets easier. Yes, I still want it, but it's easy to pass it up. And so if hopefully that gives you a little bit of, motivation, that if you can get through the hard part of just breaking the sugar addiction right now,
For sure.
then
Absolutely.
it does get easier. Well, is there anything that I did not ask you, either of you, today that you want to share with the audience?
The one thing that I want to just stress to people as well, and we've kind of talked about it, is that one thing that doesn't get talked enough about Crohn's, we talk about the pain and all that good stuff, but we don't talk about the mental side of Crohn's. I think it does need to be talked about more because what we go through, the highs, the lows, the isolation, it can really be depressing at times. And so I just really want to stress to people, don't be afraid to go talk to someone about what you're going through. Don't isolate yourself, because I did that right before my first surgery. I got super depressed because with everything's going on, and I finally was able to really talk about that I was depressed because of what was going on, and it helped me a ton. So just don't isolate yourself and don't be afraid to talk about what you're going through.
It's a good tip, and it can't be said enough. All right. Well, Zach and Chelsie, thank you both so much for sharing your journeys with me today, with our audience today, and doing everything that you're doing with the Gut It Out Foundation and building up some fundraisers and really raising awareness for IBD. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having us on. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you both. Thank you for listening to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have an IBD story, either as a patient or a family member, that you'd like to share as a guest on this podcast, Or if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, send me an email at crohnsfitnessfood@gmail.com. If you'd like to learn more about me and my Crohn's journey, follow me on Instagram using @crohnsfitnessfood, or visit my blog for in-depth articles about my struggles and victories with Crohn's through diet, fitness, and lifestyle at www.crohnsfitnessfood.com. And finally, remember, be strong, be grateful, and be the warrior that you are.